I'm sure today's subject isn't going to need any introduction, but we're going to talk about Palworld. You know, Pokemon.
With guns. It's so stupid. Palworld has exploded.
The game Palworld exploded very shortly after release. As of the recording of this video, Pocket Pair, the developers of Palworld, have reported 12 million players have picked it up since January 19 when it was released. And as of this recording, Palworld has stayed in the 6th position out of all of the other directories available to watch on Twitch. Now that's no small feat for small developers. In fact, in the last couple of months, we've been seeing a huge explosion of smaller development teams seeing vast amount of success. Take a look at Lethal Company. That game exploded and shows no signs of slowing down. And Palworld also seems to be continuously growing day by day. But how long is this gonna last? Now, before I move any further with this speculation, I want to make sure that you guys know I've played the game. I've been playing Palworld. I've been streaming it. I've been loving it. I think about this game in my sleep. It's a good game, but it reminds me of another game that gave me this same feeling, the same urgency to keep playing, keep digging. You just want to enjoy more of this goddamn game. And that game is Valheim. And when I think of Valheim in comparison to Palworld, there are quite a few similarities. One of them being the explosion in player interest. And I'm serious. Valheim is my second most played game on Steam. As you can tell, I don't play games for lots of hours. I play them, I burn through them, I move on to the next thing. I don't have time to spend countless hours replaying games over and over. Ignore that though. We're not going to talk about that. Now you might be wondering, why the hell am I even bringing up Valheim? Why am I making this comparison? Well, I'm concerned that Palworld is going to be a flash in the pan, so to speak. Like there's a lot of fire, it burns hot, splattering grease on everybody, and can't help but get a little bit of Palworld on you. Valheim was very similar when it was first released. A lot of the members of my Twitch community are like, hey man, are you gonna play Valheim? We wanna play Valheim, this is gonna be good. Let's play some Valheim, you need to play Valheim. I'm like, fine, stop, enough, we're gonna play Valheim. We played it a lot. I played it non-stop. It was all I could think about. And that's how Palworld is making me feel. And I'm very concerned that Palworld might go down the same route that Valheim did and slowly lose a large chunk of this player base before they can capture their audience with an update and more content in order to keep people engaged. You see, near the end of my time playing Valheim, we had beaten the bosses. We had done all the things there was to do. We were told by the developers that there was an update coming right around the corner. We're gonna be getting that to you as soon as possible, as soon as possible. It's gonna be there, it's gonna be there, just wait. And we waited, and we waited. And eventually, we left. We stopped playing the game. It had lost interest. We've had our fun, we've built amazing structures together, we've done some crazy things, we've beat all the bosses. What's left? We have all the in-game gear, we've traveled a good portion of the map, the rest of the map is undeveloped and unfinished, so what now? What's next? And I fear if Palworld doesn't get on top of this as soon as possible, which let me just say, I'm pretty sure they probably are. Pocket Pair has definitely hit it out of the park with this one, and I don't think that they're gonna rest on their laurels when the potential to grow this game even greater exists. And the reason Palworld might see a drop in players very quickly in the coming months, we recently had the release of a game called Enshrouded. Palworld sells itself as a survival crafting game, but it's actually, in my opinion, very light on the survival and crafting mechanics, whereas a game like Enshrouded seems to be swimming in these mechanics that most survival crafting lovers enjoy. But when it comes to survival crafting, comparing Palworld and Enshrouded would be like comparing games like Skyrim versus Fallout New Vegas. Fallout New Vegas having more role-playing elements than Skyrim. You see what I'm saying? If you're going to go for a role-playing game, you would pick New Vegas over Skyrim. At least I would. So if you are looking for a survival crafting game, Palworld might be feeding and scratching that itch right now, but Enshrouded with its recent release is starting to see a massive explosion in the player base as well. I think only hindered by a few holdouts that are still playing Palworld and haven't reached that in-game folks like myself who are very busy, don't have a lot of time to dump into a game. And I honestly think I'm probably going to spend more time playing Enshrouded than I will Palworld in the long run. And while Enshrouded might take away a little bit from the initial player base from Palworld, we have another release called Nightingale slated for February 22nd, 2024. And while Nightingale has seen numerous delays due to its shift from being on the Unreal 4 to the Unreal 5 engine, even with these delays, the inevitable release of Nightingale by Inflexion Games is going to show the true staying power for Palworld when Nightingale eventually releases. Nightingale looks to give us a lot of the similar hardcore survival crafting elements that a lot of us have been looking for that I don't think Palworld at this time is currently satiating. Where I think Palworld will be able to maintain and succeed is with their current roadmap. They're looking at adding PvP, PvP Arena. There was talk about even making it more static, turn-based PvP style PAL fights similar to that of Pokemon. And I think personally, if Palworld leans more into the monster catcher aspect of the game and not try to compete with games like Enshrouded, whose main focus is that survival crafting element, I think Palworld has one hell of a lifetime ahead of it. For the rest of the video, I'm not going to speculate on the lifespan of the game. I'm just going to go ahead and cover some of the recent topics that have been surrounding the game. Let's just get this right out of the window. Nintendo is a very litigious company. We saw somebody drop a mod for Palworld that basically dropped Ash Ketchum in the game. That mod was up for less than I think 48 hours before Nintendo had slapped him with a cease and desist. Is it possible that the reason was because they hid it behind a paywall? Maybe, but I also know Nintendo doesn't give a shit whether or not it's free or you're paying for it. Looking at the realm of emulation, most of you know, Nintendo doesn't like to have any of their titles out there on the interwebs where you and I can download it for free. They're not going to add it to the virtual consoles, but they don't want anybody else to have it either. But that's a whole nother topic for another day. Needless to say, if there was an issue with Palworld, Nintendo would have come down hard on them already. Speaking of Pokemon, I feel that we really need to clear the air when it comes to this discussion around how the developers at Pocket Pair are receiving death threats. Death threats. Let me just reiterate that. People at Palworld have received death threats over their game. This is the side of gaming that I don't like and I don't understand and I don't know where it came from. I don't know why fan bases could be so rabid into thinking that sending somebody a threat on their life is okay. Maybe have a normal discussion publicly with other players and have something more constructive to say besides telling the developers that you're going to come to their house, stick a all with their family still in the room. I think where these angry Pokemon fans need to focus their energy is on the fact that Palworld is a decently made game. Maybe you could look at Game Freak and Nintendo and say, hey, we demand better games. They've been putting out the same games with the same formula for over 20 years. I think it's time for a change. And as I've stated in previous videos, the only way that we can see change in the video gaming industry is by speaking with our wallets. If we refuse to buy something, just maybe, they'll improve things, or at least stop giving us shit on a plate and trying to tell us that it's filet mignon. And the legal stuff with Nintendo aside, the main issue I think is that Palworld and the Palworld community needs to differentiate itself from the Pokemon games. I think if the player base wants to be taken seriously, stop jokingly call them Pokemon. We're aware, we're all aware as players, a lot of these pals look very similar, but parodies exist. I heard a creator not too long ago compare Palworld and Pokemon to that of Star Wars and Spaceballs.
Yes, of course. I've heard the same rumor myself.
Spaceballs is obviously a spoof, right? It's a spoof on Star Wars. Just as, in my opinion, Palworld is a spoof on Pokemon. But to continue to call Palworld Pokemon with guns, I think is doing the game a great disservice because it has so much more. And I think Palworld needs to be looked at with a wider lens because all games are more than just the sum of their parts. Palworld isn't a Pokemon spoof. It's not just a monster catcher game. It does have survival crafting mechanics. Do I feel that maybe it should narrow its focus a little bit to continue to entice players that are going to stick with it the longest? Yes, because the players that are going to stick with this game the longest are the ones that want a monster catcher game at heart. Palworld moving forward will just find so much more success if they lean in to those monster catcher mechanics. With that being said, I just want to say that Palworld is a fantastic game. It's definitely worthy of your time, especially if you're into the monster catcher aspect of this video game. I highly recommend getting it. It'll be a good time. It's a great time killer. if you're looking for something to just have a good time, play with your friends, or just play with yourself. Either way, I'm looking forward to seeing what Pocket Pair has in store for Palworld, and thank you all so much for watching today's video. Stay weird, stay awesome, and I'll see you in the next one.